may be seated.
On behalf of the President of the United States Army, and a grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved ones' honor and faithful service. Please accept our personal condolences to you and your whole family. I'm very sorry for your loss.
אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין Friends, it is at a time like this that the psalmist wrote, I cast my eyes, I lift my eyes onto the mountains, asking myself, where will my help come from? To only be able to respond, to only be able to say to himself, perhaps my help can only come from the source of all life, maker of heaven and earth. We say today to an amazing husband and father and grandfather and friend, to our beloved Larry Friedman, God will not suffer your foot to be moved. God that keeps you will not slumber. Behold, the source of life that keeps Israel neither slumbers nor sleep. God is now your keeper. God is the shade upon your right hand. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. God will keep you from all evil. God will keep your soul. May God guard our going out and our coming in from this time and forevermore. In coming here together to say our goodbyes and to celebrate the life of a true son, devoted son, sibling, family man, patriarch, who has given rise to an amazing family. We're going to hear from a number of family members. But before we do so, I would ask you to please join me, if you wish to, in reciting the 23rd Psalm. We're going to use the traditional version of the 23rd Psalm. If you like to, please join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Our rabbis taught us, on the basis of so much of the scripture, to think at this kind of time, God, what are we that you take knowledge of us? What are we, children of humanity, that you make account of us? We are like unto vanity. Our days are as a shadow that passes away. In the morning we flourish, we grow up. In the evening we are cut down, we are withered. You turn us to contrition and you say, return to love, return to connection, return to family, return to friends, children of humanity. Those who are wise know their latter days. We carry nothing with us but we leave a great deal behind. Those who commit to family, to love, to friends, to the people around them, they, at the end of the day, leave us the greatest gift, and we are forsaken. At this time, I'm going to invite members of the family to start coming up and to speak. I'm going to ask two of Larry's children, David and Mimi, to come up in a moment. And I'm going to ask two grandchildren to also come up. And Mimi may be accompanied by children as well. At this time, David, I invite you to come up.
I'm often accused by my friends and family of being a low talker, so I'm going to try to project, but if you can't hear me, please just raise your hand and I'll make it louder. So good afternoon. On behalf of my brother, sister, our spouses, and our children, thank you all for being here today as we lay my father to rest beside my dear mother, whom we miss so deeply. I know that nothing I say today can fully do justice to the man my father was or the profound impact he had on my life. I can only hope to offer a glimpse of the love, legacy, and lessons he leaves behind. 2025 has been an incredibly difficult year for Melinda, our children, and me. Just 5 months ago, we lost my father-in-law, Stanley Miller. Losing both of our family's patriarchs within such a short time has left a hole in our hearts that will never truly heal. These two men were pillars in my life, and they had my back for as long as I can remember. Over 40 years with my father-in-law, and my entire life with my dad, 62 years. As my father liked to joke with his caregivers in recent months, he said, "I've known David his whole life." I was blessed to have such remarkable role models for so long, and saying goodbye to both in the span of months is a grief beyond words. Lawrence Morton Saul Friedman was born on July 16, 1934 at Mount Sinai Hospital, not very far from where we sit today, during the long shadow of the Great Depression. He was the youngest child of Albert and Anne Friedman, who were born in 1898 and 1905, respectively, in a part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire that was Hungary in those years, but later became Czechoslovakia after the collapse of the empire at the end of World War I. My grandparents made the incredible journey to America around 1919. I'm currently researching the exact dates, ships, and arrival details. Come find me later if you would like to discuss that. My grandfather left behind more than half a dozen siblings in Europe, each of whom by the 1940s had their own spouse and their own children. Tragically, none of them survived the Holocaust. From what we know, most perished in the gas chambers of Auschwitz. That unimaginable loss was a quiet, constant presence in my grandparents' home. It was a trauma that wasn't openly discussed, but it shaped my father's life and ours. My sister often calls me Baby Jesus, joking that as the firstborn, I was the favorite. I don't disagree with her there, but and perhaps as the only son of two older sisters, my father also received special treatment, entrusted with carrying the family name to the next generation. The family settled in Cleveland Heights. My grandmother worked at Lax and Mandel Bakery on Taylor Road, a friendly and familiar face behind the counter for decades, until she retired at age 76. I will always remember the delicious pastries she brought us almost every week: hi-hats, coconut bars, double cookies, and plenty of other things. She was also an amazing cook who always made enough food for an army. If I could choose my last meal, it would be her kreplach, breaded veal cutlets, and potato kugel. Hold the vegetables. My grandfather worked as a conductor on the New York Central Railroad. My dad recalled that during World War II, his father's train cars often carried German POWs being transported inland away from the East Coast in case of enemy landings. Coming from such a modest background, my father started working from a very young age to contribute to the family, hauling ice, raising chickens, plenty of other odd jobs, all while attending school and going to religious classes nearly every day. As a child of an Orthodox household, he lived between two worlds, the old gray world of hardship and tradition, and the bright, shiny new Technicolor world of the American dream. That duality shaped him, and I believe it was part of what made him such a complex and fascinating person. After graduating from Cleveland Heights High School, he attended pharmacy school at Ohio Northern University, graduating in 1956, and then served in the Army at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio. On weekends of Army leave, he enjoyed visiting his Texas family, his Uncle Lewis and his cousins Marvin, Alfred, Sam, and Doris. These relationships, along with those he maintained with my grandmother's sister, Aunt Lil's children, Roz and Larry, and his sisters, Etta and Lucille, were incredibly important to him. He never had a brother, but his cousin, Dr. Larry Unger, filled that role. The two Larrys were lifelong friends and confidants. I still have a fading photograph of Joe DiMaggio, an autograph of Joe DiMaggio that the Yankee Clipper signed for both Larrys at a train station sometime during the 1950s. Larry Unger's passing in 2023 was a tremendous loss for my father. My dad was also a devoted uncle, especially to my Aunt Lucille's sons, Scott, David, and Bobby, who grew up in Cleveland far from their own father. My parents always made an effort to include them, and our trips to the Virgin Islands during winter break remain some of the best memories of my life. Cousin Bobby almost always joined us, and those times were especially unforgettable. While my parents were reserved and weren't always outwardly affectionate, they gave us kids the two greatest gifts a child could receive. We knew we were loved, and we knew they were proud of us. They supported us, sacrificed for us, and made sure we had access to the best opportunities. For my dad, providing us with the comforts he never had was not a sacrifice. It was a joy. But even we kids couldn't compete with the pride and the love that he had for his grandchildren, Aaron, Elizabeth, Jillian, Morgan, and more recently, Eitan. My father and mother were deeply comforted knowing Lizzie had found in Eitan such a wonderful partner. After the Army, my father built a successful career in pharmacy and married my mom in 1959. They were active members of the Temple for over 50 years and enjoyed their community at the Oakwood Club, playing golf and tennis, if not exactly very well. My mother was an extraordinary woman, highly intelligent, gracious, strong, full of quiet dignity. Losing her in 2022 devastated all of us, but no one more than my father. Their 63-year marriage was remarkable, and he cared for her so lovingly during her terrible battle with cancer. He never recovered from her loss. On July 16th, my dad turned 91. Nearly blind and very much exhausted, he was ready to reunite with the love of his life. He always said Cleveland had the best weather on the planet. If only because his reasoning was because it had no natural disasters, unless you count the Browns. Okay? For him, home was wherever my mom was, and now he is finally home. I want to close with something personal. Just 2 days ago on Tuesday, I spent 6 hours packing up his apartment, racing to beat the August assisted living facility fee. He would have been very proud of that. As I waited for the movers to take his furniture and belongings, I looked around at what he had chosen to keep. During his final chapter, what mattered most when space and time were so limited? There were no valuables, no jewelry, nothing flashy, just the treasures of a life well lived. Framed photos of his family, his army portrait, pictures of my dad with his beloved cousin Larry, his father's ancient tefillin, family albums with many photos of my mother, his kids and grandkids, a framed map of the Virgin Islands, and a scroll commemorating my mother's bat mitzvah. These were his riches, his people, and his love. Dad, I love you. I'll miss you for the rest of my life. Rest in peace and hug Mom for us. I know you will.
David, thank you. Thank you. Miriam, Mimi, I see that you are accompanied.
Well flanked.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. There's so much I'd love to share, and paring down my father in a few minutes is tough. First, I want to send a thank you to all who called and texted me over the past few days with such lovely stories about my dad. Many of you shared ways my dad made you laugh or how he helped you as a pharmacist. My family is so grateful for these helpful words. My dad was a steady presence in all of our lives, and he is a huge loss. A special thank you to family who traveled to be here today, and my two North Stars, Holly and Amy, for traveling in for today. As you heard, my father's childhood was not an easy one, and I believe it's for this reason that he worked hard to make sure our home was one of love, security, and stability. I will be forever grateful to my dad, along with my mom, for providing me and my brothers with a home base where it was clear all three of us mattered most. When we came home, we came home. I believe it was my dad's mission to allow his kids to be kids and slightly coddle us in ways he might not have been. My dad told me often as an adult that there was no better feeling for him than coming home to his family after a hard day of work. He also told me how much respect and gratitude he had for our mom, who stayed home to raise us while we were growing up. My dad was loving, gentle, and incredibly funny. Of our two parents, he was the one we'd ask if we wanted something, because he was the softie who always said yes. Even as a teenage girl, I could talk with him about a struggle I might be having with a friend or a teacher, and he would help me. He was especially good at helping me with math and science, two subjects I often found challenging. He always gave me great advice and was extremely compassionate and sensitive. I often find myself dishing out the same advice to my kids. He always seemed to have time for us, and when I say always, I mean 24/7, because he never seemed to sleep. Whenever we walked past my parents' bedroom, no matter how late, we'd hear him whisper to us, "What's wrong?" For my dad, I believe his heyday was not retirement, but the time when we were growing up, in the thick of his business, coming home to a loud, vibrant home, getting a chance to say hello to our friends who were often at the house, and sit down to a family dinner. Hard work, love of family, and Judaism were critical to my dad, and not sweating the small stuff. Education was really important, and he made it clear if we wanted more of it, he would foot the bill. Between the three of us, there are 2 Juris Doctors and 2 master's degrees. Ironically, our whale-watching sibling holds one of the master's degrees and one of the JDs. Having a pharmacist for a father had many perks. He knew exactly how to treat an illness or injury, and he felt strongly that the less medicine you used, the better off you were. He'd bring me teen and fashion magazines, gum, trendy trading cards, and Bonnie Bell lip smackers. At least at one point in our teens, all three of us kids, along with our cousins, were employed at Heights Pharmacy working behind the candy counter. Hard work was something we saw firsthand, and he made sure to instill us with a strong work ethic. Aside from Heights Pharmacy, many of his drugstores were in areas of town most of us were told by our parents not to drive through. I remember many nights through my childhood being woken up by the phone ringing, and it was law enforcement letting him know one of his stores had been robbed. When I was old enough to not be afraid for him, he shared stories of being held up while at work, always for narcotics, sometimes money as well. He told me he wasn't afraid of the people who had guns, but the robbers holding up the store with knives were the real unpredictable crazies. At one holdup, the gunman told everyone to sit on the floor and put their hands up. My dad argued that no one sits on the job without clocking out first. As a young, nervous mother, I would call him so frequently with a medical-related question about one of my kids that eventually he started answering my phone calls, not with a warm hello, but with a pharmaceutical consultations. As David mentioned, nothing gave my dad greater joy than his grandchildren. I was lucky to raise my children here in Cleveland, where they were regular babysitters and spectators at school concerts, performances, and sporting events. I know that because my dad worked so much when we were growing up, being able to attend the grandkids' events was extremely meaningful, and he loved it. When my mother was diagnosed with cancer, I was fortunate to be able to be at their house almost every day. To witness my dad's devotion to my mom was almost a spiritual experience. They always made me and both of my dogs welcome, no matter how hard a time it was. No matter what pain my mother was enduring or how tired my dad may have been from a late night of caring for my mom, they made me feel like a celebrity when I walked in the door, so grateful to have me there. Sometimes when I was over, I'd just stop what I was doing and savor the fact that I have two incredible, loving parents, because I knew it would be coming to an end. The last few years, as you all know, were hard on my dad. He never wanted to be in a world without my mom. She preceded him in death by a little over 3 years, and during that time, I often wondered how he kept going. I appreciate David and Melinda for wanting us to move down to Florida with my dad. I know it would have been easier on them had we stayed in Cleveland. I think it was really special for my dad to finally live in the same city with you both and get to see you and Aaron on a regular basis. I am proud of how he adapted to his new environment in assisted living, but I do know how much he missed Cleveland. It was a hard move on him. He brought his humor with him and was loved by the staff and residents alike. I pray that he is reconnected with my mom, his parents, sisters, his cousin Larry, and the many wonderful friends that are waiting for him. I hope he received a very warm welcome from my dogs, Joy and Bee, who used to park themselves at his feet when we were at his house for a meal, because they also knew he was a softie and could not say no. I am so blessed to have been his daughter, for his love and his lessons, and for the life he's provided me and my brothers.
Sure. I'm Aaron. Aaron, Larry's first and oldest grandson. Thank you for being here today to celebrate the life of my Papa Larry, a man whose presence left a mark not only on our family, but on everyone who had the privilege to know him. When I think of Papa Larry, many memories come to mind. I think of winter visits to Cleveland for Hanukkah, where he'd take me to John's toy store. I think of days playing golf with him, Graham and Nancy. I think of the day trip we took to Niagara Falls, Papa Larry, Grandma and Lizzie, and me when we crossed over the Canada side for lunch. One of the most special memories I have is our trip when I was a teenager, just the two of us, to the Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. I'm so thankful for that one-on-one time that we shared there together. Papa Larry showed me how to be dependable and always told me never to give up. But most of all, he showed me how to keep going even when it's hard. Just 2 weeks ago, we had dinner together to celebrate his 91st birthday. Sitting there with him, it actually reminded me of my trips to Cleveland when we'd go to Bob Evans for breakfast. It was our little tradition. So even though I'm really sad today, I feel very lucky to have had Papa Larry in my life for so many years. We will miss him so much, but we will never forget how special he was and how much he meant to all of our family and friends. Thank you.
It's not fun to go last. Okay, I'm also kind of a low talker, just like my dad, so let me know. Good afternoon. My name is Lizzie, and I am Papa Larry's granddaughter. Thank you all for being here this afternoon on this rainy day to honor my Papa Larry. I guess we think alike, Dad, because I want to say that my grandfather often boasted that Cleveland had the best weather in the country, and it seems today it did not disappoint. But I know he is comforted to be back and resting in the place he considered to be his home. When we were young, my grandparents took my brother and me for a fun-filled day to watch the Blue Angels and visit the Science Museum. He described it as the perfect day. Our day ended at the museum gift shop, where he instructed each of us to select one gift. He must have been feeling so certain about the day's superlative nature, because on the car ride home, he asked, "Who's the best Papa?" Aaron proclaimed immediately, "You are Papa," but I had other plans and bursted his bubble. I told him, "My Papa Stanley is the best Papa," because he would never have said I could only pick one thing. And I'm sure that he was struck by it, because he harped on it for the last 25 years, telling anyone who would listen. But I know Papa Larry would get a kick out of you all hearing this story today. And the truth of it is, he was the best Papa. He cared for all of us deeply and showed up for us when he could. My grandfather sparked my career in pediatric dentistry. His long career as a clinical pharmacist, which you heard about, may have had something to do with it. Ever involved in my academic pursuits, after exam grades were distributed, I would immediately call him. Near perfect grades were not enough for him. I remember him saying, "If you really studied, you would have gotten 100%. He would chuckle, and my Grandma Nancy would follow quickly with, "Oh, don't listen to him." But I never doubted that Papa was proud of me. His perpetual motivational pessimism pushed me to push myself, helping me to realize my potential. Not so secretly, he wanted me to pursue a career in medicine, and while I did not exactly fulfill that, I did marry a doctor, and he was satisfied. You may or may not have known, and you do at this point, that my grandfather grew up quite poor. Not long ago, he described eating ketchup sandwiches to me and my husband, and he said they raised carp in the bathtub that they later used for gefilte fish. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall back then, and though there are rumors that these stories he told were maybe not entirely true, like many in his generation, he came from humble beginnings and managed to create a beautiful life and family. Religion and poverty often thrive together, and as you heard, he was raised an Orthodox Jew. While with each passing year he became more secular, he never forgot from where he came. He even gave me Yiddish lessons when I was younger.
And when I met Eitan, who was raised conservative and makes Shabbat each week, it gave my grandfather an immense sense of pride. I will miss calling him and wishing him Shabbat Shalom, and will think of him as I light candles each Friday night. Before I conclude, I would be remiss if I did not mention my beloved grandmother, the love of his life. The last few years were challenging for him mentally and emotionally. Alone, he moved from his longtime home to be closer to family in Florida as his social pool became smaller. Anyone who spoke with him over the last 3 years knows that he longed to be with my grandmother and found little joy in life without her. It was difficult for him to make it through a conversation without crying. But I find comfort in knowing that their neshamot are now reunited. Rest easy, Papa. I love you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the both of you, Aaron and Lizzie Elizabeth. You know, your grandpa was born a day before my father. We often spoke about this, and was truly, as you said, a product of the Great Depression. He was also a poster child of the American dream. What he succeeded in creating through the humble beginnings at Ohio Northern, working hard through his college years, and then military service, and then building up a business to develop the kind of life that he created for his family and that he was able to leave behind was the pride of his life. I've known a large number of people here. Larry was the most married person I knew. Larry was profoundly married. Larry was so profoundly attached to Nancy and did not spare an effort to render her comfortable and for her to know that she was cared for during those last years of her life. We watched Larry throughout this time. What a role model. Having cared for so many other members of his family through previous decades. What a remarkable role model. And I want to say something to all of you and to this family. The care that you took of Larry these last couple of years in Florida, bringing him close to you in Florida, taking care of his needs, making sure that you were there. That legacy passed on. What a remarkable legacy. What a remarkable gift. And the ability to celebrate his 91st birthday with all of you. I will miss a very special friend, a true connector, a man who, throughout his time and into his old age, beyond the time he was able to drive, would go out and meet neighbors and make friends, who was genuinely interested, who cared about people, who on the very last time I spoke with him, struggling to wish him a happy birthday, just a few weeks ago, remembered the name of my wife and of my children. What a remarkable legacy you have, how proud and loving he was of this entire family and of his many friends. The biblical poet teaches us a season is set for all things and for every occurrence under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot the planted. A time to break that which was built and a time to frame and to build. A time to cry and a time to laugh. A time to weep and a time to dance. A time to cast stones and a time to collect stones. A time to embrace and a time to shun the embrace. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to preserve and a time to discard. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time of love and a time to hate. A time to struggle and a time to make peace. At this time, I would like to invite all of you who can to please rise for the El Malerachim. אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, לנשמת אליעזר משה שאול בן אברהם, שהלך לעולמו, בעל הרחמים יצרו בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. Our God, full of compassion, you who dwell on high, grant perfect rest unto the soul of Larry Friedman, who has departed from this world. Lord of mercy, bring him into your presence and let his soul be bound in the bond of eternal life. Be Larry's possession, and may Larry's repose be complete peace. And let us together say, Amen. Amen. Be seated.